Welcome back. Announcements. Please don't forget you have homework. Your assignment number 1 is due tomorrow. You have all day today and tomorrow. Any question, please let me know. I have answered some questions by email, basically about the input. Just to be sure, you have these 2 columns. The column in which I show you the language that we are creating. Your input is a text file. You can copy paste that column in a text file, and that should be the input. Enters, white spaces, tabs. It could be any number of white spaces or tabs or enters in the document. Just think about it's a program, and you can put a space before the parentheses, after the parentheses, inside the parentheses, or you can put a tab, or you can put 2 spaces, 3 spaces, and should not be any difference. No, do not assume correct inputs. Remember, the only thing that I mention is if there is some error in the input, like there is a parenthesis missing or something wrong in the format, you report the error. It's okay that you only report the first error, the first time that you found something wrong, and stop the execution there. So my advice is you can put in those else that we reviewed before, something like throw an exception and stop the program, or even exit. 1 error, exit. Yeah, the structure basically have methods, a lot of methods. So the structure starts with 1 method. There is no instructions or method calls or anything so far. The only thing inside of the methods, quotation mark methods, is ifs, whiles, and these names. In the future, those names could represent something else, but right now it's just names. These words that do not have parentheses or semicolon or something, they could become calling the methods, but right now we do not have that. The keywords, you only have 2, if and while. That's it. Those 2 words are keywords. Everything else is kind of an ID. Well, the only thing that you need to categorize is the 3 categories that I mentioned before. Remember, you have keywords, you have names, you have delimiters. So that is mandatory, it's part of the specification, yes. Good. So in general, number 1, talking about the rubrics, your program should work with a different set of inputs that we're going to use. My advice is for you to create some inputs beside the one that I shared with you. Test. It should provide the output that is showing the slides or the output that correspond to your inputs, for sure. But most important, not only work and solve problem. Because remember, there are several different ways in which you can solve that and ignore everything that we have been reviewing here. The goal for you doing that project is not do a translator or a compiler in a professional way. You can solve that with functional programming maybe very quickly, but it's not the goal. The goal is this: create the functions for reading, the functions for split, the functions for all this syntactical process, because we're going to use that functions later. So follow the design that we have been talking about. I am going to move forward with the same design for your assignment number 2. You are going to have that. That is very similar, the check, if, check, while, and check others. For now, keep the code there. Right now, could be like, we can remove and do another thing. It's going to be useful in the next assignments. Maybe not in the 2, but in the 3. So keep the format in that way. The only thing that you submit is a Java file, yes. So far, I think you can do 1 Java file. You do not need anything else. Remember, software design is your first assignment. If you submit 5, 10 Java files, you are overcomplicating things. This homework can be done easily in 1 Java file. In fact, I am counting with you that you can do this in 1 Java file. I don't know, maybe you need 2 or whatever. style. We need to talk about that, but it should be something very simple. And I am kind of forcing you to do a lot of conditions and loops, something that later we're going to increase. You can figure out that we can move forward with a full compiler, not only this small language. I want to follow that direction, not because the compiler yet, but it's useful to review some topics, including the one that we're covering today. I am not giving you metrics, but it's a very good question. I am going to review metrics with you in some point, not for this first assignment, but assignment 3 maybe. Something that I want to do is cover metrics, software metrics. So I want to compare your projects, lines of code, complexity, and other things, but we will move forward to that. If you're working in pairs, something that I mentioned, do this and do this. It's in the previous slides, it's here, it's on Canvas. Just one person submit and just please put your names. I am asking for the Java doc. I am giving you some guidelines. Use the Java doc. One of the things that you have in the Java doc is the possibility to include authors. If you are two, just remember 2 authors, 2 lines with author, the name, It's not just one author with all the strings. Just be careful with that, and that's it. One file and need your assignment. Yeah, I mean, you can create another input like hello, if it's going to send me an error or it's going to be translated. And if it's going to be translated, what is going to be the translation? It doesn't matter that it's only one line. It doesn't matter that there is nothing inside of nothing. It's just, hopefully, if there is no errors, the output on the screen should be the square brackets because the method, and there is no instruction, so there is not going to be any line. And basically what I have here is this if inside of the method, and it looks like I have another if inside of the first if. So my output should be something more like that. You do not need to submit the HTML equivalent to the Java doc. The only thing that I want is the Java doc in the source code. So if I need to generate the Java doc, I can do it myself, or the TA can do it. I am just asking for Java doc comments in your source code. You only submit a .java file. In fact, I think Canvas is not going to allow you to submit anything else that is not .java. Well, review the examples that I provided before. Basically, the line is the equivalent to any word. For instance, if I put an X here, or hello, or bye, or whatever, remember any string, that string is equivalent to the line. And because of the position, it's inside of the second if. So this one here is going to be a line, and it's going to be inside of the second if. So it's going to be something like that. Start and end of the ifs, and whatever is inside is what the if have inside. Start and end of the method, whatever is inside is what the method have inside. And any line, if I put here a W at the beginning, it's going to be a line here because it's before the if, but inside of the method. Any word, any word is going to be translated to this one minus. That should be an error because remember, according with the methods that we create, you have this method translate. And the first thing that translate is going to do is to call the check method. And when you call the check method, the first thing that you're going to do is to check for a word that is not a keyword. In this case, if you have only that text, the if without the method. So if I remove this, and this. Just because you are reading if, and if is a keyword, not use a name, the check method is going to say error. And if you want to stop there, you can stop there and say error. But you can, I mean, you can submit more than one Java file, but again, remember, this is more about the design than any other thing. So if you're creating 2 or 3 files, just think about why you need 2 or 3 files. Because again, you are solving something that is kind of easy. The solution, the design, and therefore the source code should be something that reflects that the problem is easy to solve. It's a lot of conditions that is going to be there. There are recursion involved, it's going to be there. But think about people looking at your code. It's easy to map your code with some design right now. And what do you want? 1 module or 3? 1 file or 3? Be careful with that. Good? Okay, so hopefully this helped. Now, moving forward, you have your assignment today, tomorrow you can be working. Be sure to check the Java doc, be sure to check the Java guidelines. I am sure that you're familiar with this, but if not, please take a look. We're going to review that. The cleaning of your design, the cleaning of your code. We're going to talk more about that later. No, do not assume that. Again, I can go here and I can put an enter in any place there. Randomly, I can check like here, and I just press enter. So I am going to have 2 lines. Good. So my advice, easy solution. When you have a line, when you split, read character by character, you can have a loop. Reading characters, you basically put together words, delimiters, or keywords. That is going to be an easy solution. If you're going to use regular expressions, you be careful. You need to be kind of medium level of expertise because it's not just identify one space, but the occurrence of spaces in general. So you need to use a little bit more elaborate structure for the regular expression. If you have knowledge of that, go ahead. If not, go reading character by character. Well, right now, what I am going to test is different inputs, and I know the output. So I am going to check that your program gives me the output that I am expecting. And also, we are going to review your source code. And in your source code, we expect to find the structure that we have been talking about during the lecture. These methods that we reviewed before, and this structure for the syntaxes that we also reviewed before. So as I mentioned before, I know that you can solve this in a crazy way. I am thinking, because the question before about functional programming with Java, there are several approaches to do this quickly, but that is not what we need, because this structure, you probably are going to continue using this in your assignment too. And in some point, that solution with functional programming that could be very, very small, simple, and solve the assignment is not going to be useful for the next project. So just follow the template that we have been describing. How many functions do you need is kind of up to you. My minimum is what we described before. Remember, we described this function for reading, what the function return. We review about this function to split, what the function return. I give you the opportunity to a new delegate for that function that is splitting. Up to you what decision you take, if you put more or not. And more important, all the functions that correspond to the syntactic analysis and the decision that we take to create them. Well, I haven't made any requests for the data structure, so you can use arrays, vectors. To be honest, you do not need anything else more complex than a vector. You can solve the problem using arrays. You can solve the problem using linked lists, vectors, and so on. Hopefully, you are not using trees or hash maps or something like that. They are very powerful data structures, but just think about it. You do not use this top of the list tool to solve an easy problem, right? So I think arrays and linked lists are good enough for your data structures. I didn't give you any guidelines about which one to use. Up to you. Good? Okay, so another thing. We need to do a quiz. So I am going to open your quiz one. Your quiz one open at the end of the lecture. So it's going to open immediately when we finish, 2:45 to 30. You have 24 hours. It's going to be open all day today and also tomorrow, all day. So due date for your homework, 26, and due date for your quiz, also the 26. The quiz is only 13 questions, and you can answer the quiz in 30 minutes. It's a lot of time, really. The questions basically are 10 of them, 9 or 10, depending on your quiz, but a huge majority about the lecture one and the syllabus, just to be sure that you read the syllabus, just to be sure that you know the rules, and a few questions, 4 or 3, depending on your quiz, about lectures 2 and 3, the 2 previous lectures, and that basically means stepwise refinement. 3 questions, 4 questions about paper 1, lectures 2 and 3, very simple, really. Most of the questions about the syllabus, I think you can do it in less than 30 minutes. I mean, if you read the quiz, if you read the syllabus, if you read the paper, and you have been attending the class, 10 minutes, you're going to be done with the quiz. But you have time to review and be sure that everything is correct. Due date, tomorrow. My only goal is to be sure that you read the syllabus and you know that you have been here for the lectures. So quiz and assignment due tomorrow. Please do not forget to submit. No late submission, so be careful. Moving forward, the next paper. Very good question. Before moving, the quiz only one time. You can submit the quiz only one time. And there is going to be this information instructions telling you that in yellow and red. It's only one time. So maybe if you want, you can take a look to your syllabus, take a look to the lecture 2 and 3, and then you can move forward with the quiz. Remember, the quizzes are not proctored. So during the quiz, you can check your notes or the material that you have there available, but you have 30 minutes. So just be careful with the time. Only one time. The assignment, you can submit multiple times, but the assignment, only the last submission is graded for the assignment, for your program. For the quiz, one and only one. Good. Moving forward, the next paper. Let's see, Parnas. Hopefully you have the opportunity to read the paper. Again, you don't need to be an expert in the paper or memorize the information, but hopefully you have a big picture of what the paper is talking about. Again, the previous one, 71. Parnas, 72. We are still in this point here, and there is a lot of things that should happen in order to arrive to 2020 and the things that we need to do here. But why we're reviewing this paper? Why I am asking you to read this Parnas? Can you tell me in one sentence, 2 words, what is the importance of the paper? One concept that hopefully you knew before. Now you can put a name, the author of that concept that you knew before. Yeah, well, that is the consequence, but do you remember? This is the name that we know today. And this is the reason because this guy, well, among other things, but in particular, this paper from this author is important. Is the beginning, the idea, put over the table in software design, the importance of information hiding. And information hiding is going to be connected with this idea of modularization, models. We're going to create models in order to achieve that goal of hiding information. And those models later are going to become classes. And all this theoretical background in object-oriented programming about hiding information in classes. We're going to go there. But here, we do not have classes yet. And the proposal of the paper is hiding the information. By hiding the information, what we are doing is abstraction. Yes, abstraction is basically this idea of, I have this class, and I do not care about the difficulties inside. The only thing is, if I use this, a black box, I can send data, recover data. I can work with this. But inside, I do not care as a user what things are inside. That is the concept with this, right? Is create this new level of abstraction. Is this idea of you can do this. For instance, if you're working with the vector class in Java, you do not really care what is happening inside of the vector class in Java. What is the initial size and what happens when that size is full and you need to duplicate the vector. All that internal handling is something that you do not worry while you are doing your project. It's just, I am using a vector in Java. What happened inside, I don't care. But the vector solved my problem. Two different models. One is hiding things from the exterior, from the other models. That is the key idea in the paper. And that is what this guy is proposing. Why we are reviewing this Parnas after we review the previous one? Well, they propose two different ideas, key ideas, regarding how to modularize software. The previous one? In the previous one, the key idea was tasks. If you can identify task in the problem, if you can identify this group of actions that should happen together, you put them in the same method. If you can identify methods that work together and are related, you put them in the same group. Later, we're going to call that group the module. Everything in the previous paper is all about the process, is all about the actions, is all about grouping instructions, steps that are similar. First in a function and later in something bigger. Group of functions could create a model. This author is going to tell you, wait, that is not always the case. Not always the split of the software, the creation of the models is about the actions or the instructions. Sometimes we need to create models based on the information. There are going to be models that do not do a specific action in the solution of the problem, that are not a sub program. There is not one step, but they can help us to handle the data. And you can separate the handling the data, the complex data, from the models that are solving the problem and the complexity of that data in two different things. Modularization, considering the level of the information that you have, isolating the information from the process. A key idea that you are going to use later with object-oriented. Well, information hiding. Now, for your exam, and just to be sure, this is the definition, at least the one that you read, for information hiding. We use information hiding every day because we program with this object-oriented paradigm. And in object-oriented paradigm, this is kind of automatic. Maybe you learn to program following this principle. I only want to be sure that we can explain the principle without an example. Use what is the meaning. Information hiding. Whatever is your data, whatever you do to handle that data, the complexity, the links, the connections, with the access and the modification in one module. And I put in yellow module. I am sure that you are reading this and you are thinking, this is one class, the module. This is the data, the attributes of the class. Notice that this is not about only one variable or one data. It's all the attributes. You can have 3, 4, 5 arrays, 3, 4, 5 data structures, complex, trees, graphs, whatever, but they correspond together to the data structure for a particular problem that you have. The only thing that you need is getters and setters. I copy-paste the description from, the original one. But when you read all this, it's like, you are asking about a class with the data, the attributes, and getters and setters. Some way to access the data and some way to modify the data. Yeah, that is the concept. Information hiding. I don't care about the format. I don't care about the storage. There are pointers, references. They are consecutive in the memory with an array. I don't care. Neither the format, neither the storage structure. The only thing that I care is give me access to insert, modify the data, and give me access to consult the data, search, get, retrieve. Do a module that offers this service, and that is a check for a good design. One of your modules is not doing anything to solve the problem, but is this helper that take care of the data. Good. Justify the existence of that module. In this point, my question is, what is a module? What is a module in the context of the paper, and what is a module today? Can you explain what is a module in software, obviously? For the paper, what this guy called a module? Yeah. Let me be clear, just to put that definition, that is correct, just to put the definition in something concrete. A module here for the paper. Can you agree that is a collection of functions? Because you cannot have instructions outside of functions. So if you put together a group of functions, that group of functions for the paper is a module. Moreover, if you're going to put together a group of functions, that group of functions are going to be in one file. This idea of module is one file. Think about this. We're talking about a file in Java. Well, but the file should have a class. Yeah, later a module is going to start with that is going to be the initial idea of the classes, but it's a file with some functions. If you think about C, C++, C. If you think about C, these .c files, they are a module, and you can split one program in several C files. They are one. CPPs, in C++, there is one file in which you define the class, .h, but all the functions, the methods, are in one or more files. Those are, in terms of the structural paradigm, your modules, a collection of functions. Makes sense? Now, there is a small problem. For the paper, this is true. Today, if I told you that I have a collection of functions, you put that collection of functions inside of what? A class, right? Yeah. A collection of classes. Today, a module is not just a class. That is not the idea. Today, we include in the middle of these two definitions a new one, for the object-oriented paradigm. Now, it's not just functions inside of modules like the paper is describing. In the 70s, the only thing that we have is modules, functions, and lines of instructions. Today, Well, we have lines of instructions, we have functions, but in the object-oriented paradigm, we introduce this concept of classes that we're going to talk more later. But now, the things that I put together are the classes. Just to give you some context. In some point, someone have this idea of the packages. The packages are not an original idea. In some point, someone have the idea of, well, if we have several classes that are related, let's put that classes inside of a package. Classes together in a package. So a module is a package? Nope. A module is going to be a collection of packages. Did you notice that what I am doing is this, the big one, the module. This one, the small one, the method with the lines. In the middle, you can put another classifiers. Right now, we only have the function, we only have the module. I am talking in the 70s. Moving down, we're going to introduce another ideas, like you mentioned the packages, and here we're going to do a lot of things because you need to think about what about the components and the frameworks, another idea. We need to talk about it, but my point here is one extreme and the other. The modules grouped of something, the unit, the minimum something that we can have is the instruction inside of a function. That is something common to all the languages. You have functions, method, procedures. Makes sense? So the definition that you put in the chat, I agree with that. The abstract definition of module is that a block of code. Just be careful. We're not talking about code as lines of code. We're talking about these lines of code inside of something, and that's something inside of maybe something else or something else. The idea of groups. Good. Okay, that is fine. Now, for your exam, if I ask you what is a module, and there is a parenthesis like in the context of Parnas or in the context of that paper, just remember, if I ask you for the definition in the context of the paper and the name is Parnas or read, I am talking about these modules as collection of functions, not yet about the modules in terms of today object-oriented. You remember the difference. Now, module. If I ask you this in the exam, the difference is clear. Can you tell me in 2 lines, open question, what is the difference between a function and a module? And hopefully after what we talk is clear. What is the difference between a function and a module? A function is a collection of what? And a module is a collection of what? Can you agree that a function is a collection of lines of code and a module is a collection of functions? Can you visualize if I ask this, that one is this and the other is the elements inside? A module is a collection of functions. A function is a collection of lines of code. So a module is bigger or the same size. Do you remember another definition? We review what is a task. Do you remember what is a task? A task was, help me with the chat, any idea? A task. Yeah, or lines of code, steps, but there is something else, right? Yeah. I need to be sure that we agree with this. A task is what you want a function to do. Yeah, a function have lines of code, a task have steps. Now, the lines of code inside of a function, something that we reviewed in the previous lecture, are lines of code that are solving a particular problem, remember? That is the reason because we have this function read the file and this function split the line and so on. It's not just like, okay, I am going to write 20 lines, function, another 20 lines, function, another 20 lines, function. We do not split function just because some amount of lines of code. They are a function if those lines are related. Now, tasks are the functions. The functions solve a particular task. If we put functions together in the context of this paper, what we have is modules. Modules are this connection of functions. What about in terms of steps and instructions? Well, a module is a collection of functions. Therefore, a module is a collection of tasks. A module fulfills a responsibility. And in this point, I need to ask, what is the difference between a task and a responsibility? Can we identify the difference? Can you agree that a responsibility is a group of tasks? I agree. In your homework, in a compiler, you already know the task that you have. You are working on the program. The task, reading the file, split the line, store the tokens, and then the translation. Those are the tasks that you have right now. 4, maybe more, but at least those. Can you identify the responsibilities? There is any chance in your current project that you need to put together some tasks? There is some criteria to put together tasks? Well, the check method is a task. Also the check if, check while, all those methods, all those functions are tasks. Tell me, could you put together check method and read file? They are tasks. And right now we have them in the same module. Read the file, check the method. They are together. Again, I am assuming for your assignment 1 that you can have every method in the same file. They are all together. They are one module. Could you split that module, that one file in more? And if you are familiar with compilers, you are telling me in the chat, at this point, you can agree with me that maybe, just maybe, the method that read the file, the method that split the line, and the method that store the tokens, those 3 tasks are related with one particular responsibility. What they are doing. The tasks are reading the file. The task is split the lines. The task is getting the token. Those are tasks, collection of steps together. Those 3 tasks are doing one responsibility, lexical analysis. Thank you. You start bottom up. Maybe you start with this program that have everything in the main. I showed you the example in the previous lecture. Then we create the functions. You are working in the assignment 1 with this idea that I am asking you to have at least these 4 or 5 functions. The software is going to become a little bit more complex for the assignment 2. And if the things become more complex, we have more functions. And the thing that we need to do is to have a criteria for how to put together those functions in a particular file, in a particular model. And what you are suggesting to me for the project is, well, reading the file, splitting the line, getting the tokens, those 3 tasks together fulfill the responsibility of lexical analysis, another concept, another level of abstraction. Your program have this module for lexical analysis that could be one file with these 3 methods. And on the other hand, you have this translation. We need to define syntactic and semantic analysis later, but translation, translate. And this translate work have the methods check if, check while, check instruction, check method. All of them are tasks. You have one task for review that the method is correct. You have one task for review that the if is correct or the while is correct. Task, functions. The functions work together, solve one problem, have one common responsibility. They are one model. One line, one paragraph, one chapter, one section in the book. Okay. Moving forward, I am going to ask you in some point to do that, to have these two modules, lexical analysis, translation. Moreover, maybe I ask you to do semantic analysis, syntactic analysis. In some point, what you are doing could become 4 modules because you're going to have 4 different tasks, the 4 different tasks in a compiler. Why to do that? Hopefully you agree with me. Number 1, this one, easy to read, readability. Different names. You have that word in the paper. I need to point out the key idea with the software design, it should be easy to read. And if you have a design that is easy to read, your source code is also going to be easy to read. Well, if you follow other rules for clean coding, but it's going to be easy to follow what is happening. If you have a module lexical analysis and you have these 3 methods, it's like, well, you are reading a file, splitting a line, and searching for tokens. It's very clear, the process. And if you have another module, translation, and you have all these methods, or instruction, if, while, and so on, it's like, well, you are translating if, while, methods, and instructions. Those things are the things that you are translating. It's easy to figure out what is happening without going to the detail of trying to understand line by line our goal. Second, this one is going to become a key idea, reuse. This flexibility is the idea that in some point, maybe one of the teams, have a very good translation process, but your reading file, like when you are splitting the lines, you only split if you have one white space, but you are not considering tabs or enters or 2 spaces. But another team do that work. Theoretically, our goal is that I can take the lexical analysis from one team and use the module of translation from another and put together the best of 2 solutions in one new. The Lego blocks, we need to move forward in that direction. And the first step is this idea of, well, let's create the blocks. Rules. How to create modules. 2 rules. The first one is the Parnas rule. The first one is the recommendation of Parnas. Parnas is going to tell you, you create a model if you need information highly. You create a model if you have that data that is complex and you want to isolate that data from the process. If you have that, create a model for handling the data. And that model is going to have, obviously, the data, whatever data structure you need, the getters and the setters. Well, you do not need to use those names, but methods to access, method to get. In a compiler, in your work, do you know a data structure that in some point is going to become complex, that probably we need to put in a different module? Let me ask with multiple choice. The tokens. Do you think that we need to put the tokens outside of our models, outside of the things that we have? No, thank you. Why not? It's data, and it's this vector with things. 2 things. Number 1, is not complex. Hopefully you are using use a vector. There is no complexity. Number 2, the most important thing, that data is only useful for the lexical analysis. That data is only for these instructions, reading the file, split the line, create the tokens. wait, that data is the one that you pass to the other module, the syntactical analysis, the translation. Yeah, it's one parameter, you pass that, and you never do anything with the data again. It's not like you are inserting, updating the data, recovering the data, hardly. It's just, my work is to create this list of things, and I am going to give this to the next, and bye. You do not need a model because the data is not complex, because there are only two entities using the model. There are only two entities using the data, the one that create and the one that need it. That is a parameter, not another model. Design decision. If there are only two entities that need the data, do not do another model. Do not overcomplicate the design and the programming. Rule B. The rule B is the rules from stepwise refinement. The rule B is what you already know. If you have tasks and those tasks are related means they have to work together to achieve one responsibility, like what you are doing, they should live in the same model. All this is helping reliability. I am going to read what is lexical analysis. The best idea is that I have in the same chapter, the same code, the same module, the same file, all the functions related with that. And the same with translation, all the functions related in the same place. You do not split things that are related. The same for reuse. If I want to reuse something, I am not going to reuse your method, read the file. I am not going to reuse your method, split the lines. Reusing one function is not a good idea unless inheritance, and that is not here yet. What you reuse are files, because I can reuse your lexical analysis, and then I do not care about how do you achieve lexical analysis, 3, 4, 5 methods, I don't care, but I am going to reuse the full responsibility of lexical analysis. And this copy paste of one method, that is not reuse, that is copy paste. We need to talk exactly the meaning of reuse, but we're going to do that with metrics and quality later. But copy paste is not reuse, for you to remember right now. Okay, 2 rules. Split with the responsibilities or split with the data. And this could be your summary of the 2 papers that you read, these 2 guys. Clear? Any question? Good. Okay. So I give you the summary with the slide. Steps, functions, modules with functions, data. Anything that is complex with the data, put in a model, isolate from the difficulty of the process. Can we do this from now on in our projects? Can you do this in the assignment 1? Hopefully yes, but can you do this for assignment 2? And we need to talk about assignment 2. Not yet the assignment, but just how to solve a problem. Concept for you to remember. Module is a responsibility. Any module should have inputs, outputs, interfaces. Can you help me? In the context of a module, what is an interface? What is that thing that we call the interface of a module? Yes, thank you. The interface of a module, just like the interface of a class, is the getters and the setters. Well, the methods that allow someone else outside to access the data for storing, adding, and also to recover the data, the getters and setters. That is what we call the interface of a module. Please do not mix the idea of an interface, the interface for the model, the getters and the setters, with the concept of an interface is a class that do not have body in their methods. We are not yet in the object-oriented paradigm. Moreover, we are not talking about those kind of interfaces. And the problem here is that Java and other languages uses this interface keyword for something else. But here we're talking about like the graphical user interface, these things that help us to interact with the computer. Well, the interface of the model, those things that help us to interact with the model, the inputs and the outputs, the interface with models. We're talking about particular methods, right? Good. In yellow, remember that for your exam? No, there are not partial credits if you tell me that an interface is a class without a method. Not in this context. No classes yet. Modules should be small, independent, and easy to read. You have been reading those qualities almost for everything in software. Small, independent, and easy to read, unambiguous. I am sure that they mentioned this to you for requirements, and the same is going to apply for functions, for modules, for classes, and so on. The size is connected with the complexity, the independence that is connected with the idea of relationships, and the reliability. That is all for software design. We're going to work in a team, and because we're going to work in a team, the things that we do, the individual things, should be easy to understand for others. The public methods, yeah. The public methods conform the interface of a class. That is correct. Any public method is the interface for the class, and those methods can input, output. Yeah. Good. So, and you have this project, you are doing this project. By now, I am sure that you are aware of the complexity of what you are doing. By now, you understand what is the process to follow if we ask for a translation here. What if I have new ideas for the language? What if I ask you to do an update in a second version of this, such as the following? And I am going to do this. I am going to explain my new ideas for the language, my new ideas for the input. And what I want to talk with you is which of your functions or which of your models that you already have need work. If I have this model right now with all my functions, do I need more functions? Maybe it's time to split the models. Maybe it's just one line that I need to add in one of the functions. Can we identify if we need to work inside of the function or create another one big or another model? In which level we need to work in order to do some improvement in the problem that you're solving right now? Improvements. Right now, release number 1, what you're working is something like this: a box, a module, and you have inside functions. That is good. Version number 2, I am not asking you to program this, it's just a scenario. Let's see. What if now I want not only these things that look like functions, but what if I want global variables? What if I want to have, you know what? Now the functions are going to go down, but at the top, the input could have something like this, kind of the declaration of a variable. Let me be clear. Right now, this input in your current assignment should give you an error, right? Right now, what you are doing is going to read this integer. It's going to say, okay, next, open parentheses. I do not have the open parentheses, error. That is what you're doing right now. This is an error because after integer, You are looking for an open parenthesis. You don't care what is integer. You do not know. It's a word like any other. Version number 1. Yes? Hopefully, yeah, makes sense. Okay, what if I want to ask you to modify your program? Not yet. Again, it's just an hypothetical question. But what if I want to ask you, modify your software, and I want to allow, before starting with the methods, the definition of variables? For the definition of variables, what if I told you that I want to include this one, and this one, those three, integer, float, and text, like keywords? Now they are going to be keywords. In particular, they are going to be data types. So at the top of the file, you can have something that is not a method, and it should be the type for a variable. It should be any of those words. After the type, I want the name of the variables, just like you can expect, right? I can use commas. It's optional to have more than one variable in the same line. And the declaration ends with the enter. I am not using yet any delimiter. If you want to use the delimiter, we can put a dot here, whatever. Tell me, if I ask you to do this, what should we do? What are the changes in your source code that we need to do? In particular, which is the method that we need to modify? Do we need to change read line? Do we need to change the one that split the tokens? Do we need to change the tokens that the structure? Translate. Thank you. Do you remember that you have this method? Everything connected with lexical analysis, everything connected with this split the lines and reading and so on, you do not need to change that. Because what I am asking you is something related with syntactic analysis, something related with the language that is going to change, not the characters. In this hypothetical new scenario, what we you discover is, you know what? Maybe instead of having only one file, it could be a good idea to have two files, one for the lexical and another for everything else, because then the developer that is going to change this to do this second version, I do not need to have on my screen this file with a lot of methods and instructions that I am not going to use, that I do not care, that are not related with this functionality. The module, the things about lexical, can be in another file, and I am not going to touch that file, not now. And then I have another module with all these translate, check methods that is smaller, really, and my attention is going to be there. In particular, I am going to go and search for this method translate. And if you remember, what you have inside of translate in your current version is to call the method check method. That is what you have. Moreover, I remember that I mentioned to you, you know what? You need to do this in a loop with some kind of condition there. And you help me with when we do not have more tokens. This is your translate right now. Because the only thing that you have right now is a bunch of methods, right? But now what I am adding is, well, according with this method, but now we have also these global variables. Can you agree with me that the only change here design level. Should be something like the following. It's like, well, now we're going to have here a condition. If that condition is true, we're going to call checking the method because we know that this is a method. But if the condition is not true, before, the only thing that we have is this error. Now, looks like something that could make sense. Again, I am assuming that you're working with the current version. So I am assuming that everything in black is something that you are familiar with. And therefore, that you can understand the implications of adding what I am adding in red color. Current version, what you are doing, translate, is calling several times to method. Now, because I am adding a different type of thing, I could call the method if I think that what I am reading is the beginning of a method. Or I could call, well, maybe this is a variable, one or the other. Yes or no? What I am doing here is working with the design. I am working in this abstract level in which I do not know what is happening or what is going to happen. I am not worried about which lines of code are going to solve the problem. What I am worried about is, well, if I have this model, what could be something that I can modify? I could be showing you diagrams, the flowchart diagram, but I think it's easy just for you to check the code, right? Hopefully makes sense. The big question here, the difficulty here is, what is this condition? Yes or no? How do I know that something that I have when I call translate should be reviewed as a method or as a possible variable? Ideas. Yeah. Reading ahead is something that you're going to need later. Right now, the advantage in my example is that my methods do not have a data type. So far, I do not need to read ahead. If I ask you for the method to return an integer, so if I ask you for integer main and the parentheses, then you will need to read ahead, like in a compiler. Right now, with this, I agree with the easy solution in the chat. It's like easy. The only thing that I am going to do is to read the current token. If the current token is a keyword, then I can call. If it's not a keyword, I call for the check method because that word is the name of the method. But if it's a keyword, then I can call the check variable because if it's a keyword, it should be the data type for the variable. Now, notice something that I am doing is I have a condition, and the condition can be something as simple as an expression, but it could be something else. And in this case, it's something else. It's like, well, I need to know if what I am reading right now is a keyword or not. You can create a method for that. In a class, it could be a private method. It's not going to be part of the interface. It's going to be a method that is only for internal use, private. And it's a method that is going to return a Boolean. Therefore, you can use the method in the condition. And inside of that method, you can put whatever you need to do in order to know if the current word that you are reading, remember that we have this counter, and remember that we have this array, and you're going to use the counter with the array to get what do you have at that point. And then you need to compare that something with all the keywords that you know, or all the keywords that are valuable for you. In this case, with this text, integer, and float. And if whatever you are reading is one of those three keywords, you return a true and this run. Professor, can we put the condition there? I mean, we can put the source code there for all that validation, and it's still going to be a small method. The problem is not the size. The problem is easy to read. And hopefully you can agree with me that if you have this do, if, not is keyword, check the method, else, check the global variables. Hopefully you can agree that every single word is like a comment. Every single word is telling you the story of what is going to happen in translation. What is the meaning of translate? Translate in the top level is I can have a variable or I can have a method. First level of abstraction, methods or variables, global variables. That is true. Any input that you provide is going to have that. Well, right now only methods, but in this scenario, variables and methods. What do you have inside of a method is a different level of abstraction. It's a different task. It's a different function, even though it's recursive. Makes sense. Only two more methods, and you can have this. Well, we're missing something. Check global. You need this is keyword that hopefully you can imagine, and you need this Can you imagine what is going to be the source code, the body for the method check global var? What are you going to have inside of this method? Remember that our only options are instructions, conditions, and loops, like in any other software. Do we need loops? Do we need conditions? Which instruction do we need here? Do we need a condition if? And remember, we need to check that the first element here, check for the data type. We have the data type, the counter that we have. We increment the counter, we move to the next word. Else, your error. Remember deception or whatever. First element. Second element. Another if, and we need to define a condition here. What should be the condition there? A name. Yeah, these characters together, but there should not be a data type, right? It's a name in the tokens. Counter. Move to the next one. We finish with the second task. We're going to do that later. Like someone is telling me, well, here, if I have the name and also I have the data type, I should store this in some place because I need to remember my variables and the data type of my variables. Semantic analysis, right? I don't care about that now. but yeah, that could be true later. What is the next thing here? Can you agree with me that another condition here is that you need to review the comma? And what happens if you have a comma? Another name. Are you noticing that these lines here are going to be somehow a loop? And as far as you have commas, you need to do again the checking for the name. And you stop when you reach the end of the line, if we want to use the enter, or when we read this dot or a semicolon, if you want to use the semicolon, whatever, but that is the conditions for the loops. And again, I will have 3 more methods, and with 3 more methods, and the content of those methods are used if, else, while, and isolating the problems in what is this condition, what this method is going to do. What I am building is now a second version in which now my language could have variables and methods. Okay, that is challenge number 1. Hopefully you get the idea. I am not asking you to do assignment number 2 yet, but I need you to have the ideas. Moreover, the decisions that we're taking for the design, the methods that we're creating. Help me. Problem number 2 for you as a homework. Think about it. What can you do? Where did you add source code? If I ask you for the conditions of the ifs and the conditions of the whiles, oh, I am missing this one. Inside of the parentheses of the if or the while, you know what? Instead of empty, I want a condition. I want something. And to make things easy, the only condition that I am thinking about here is something equals something. And yes, I am using one equal. Something equals something that could be a number equal to a number, or whatever string equal to a number, or the string equal to a string. I don't care. 2 things with the equal in the middle, and those 2 things are names, identifiers, or numbers. What is going to change, or what needs to change in the software that you have right now if we ask for this, if we want to achieve this? Okay, immediately, method, check if, check while, something is going to happen. Because right now you have this source code that is checking for the open parentheses, checking for the close. Can you agree that you're going to basically move this, and here in the middle, you're going to call another method? Careful. Check for the parentheses, check for the parentheses here. You do not put more source code there because you do not know what is going to happen. What you do is to check, call another method, maybe check expression, check condition, check equivalence, good, call another method. And the point is that other method is going to have something that is going to review the condition, but in a different place. Moreover, now I am talking about numbers. 1, 2, 3 is a number. 1 is a number. 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, 5, 6 are numbers. We do not have tokens numbers. What can we do if we want numbers to be something that we're able to identify? Go to the module lexical analysis. Yeah. We need to do something in the method reading the file. No. We need to do something in the method split. No. Oh, we need to do something in the method identify tokens. Yeah. Can you identify that something is a number? That the only thing that you have are digits, 0 to 1? Because the only thing that I am asking here is decimal numbers, 0 to 1. Zeros, 10, zeros. Any combination. I think we can modify two modules. In one, we need to add lines because it's maybe something that can be done in 2 lines, no more methods. In the other, we need more methods because it's not an easy task. It's not one step. It's going to be a task. It's going to have several steps, more methods. And what we need to do is to connect that task with the task related. If, check if, and check while are going to be the tasks that are connected with this new task, check equivalence. I am talking with you. I am sharing the design. I am sharing you the picture, the diagram, the connection. Hopefully, you are thinking like, that is something that I can program. That is kind of an idea that I can move from this, a picture, to source code. And if so, you can make this work. Good? Okay, guys, any question? Don't worry about this yet. We're going to continue working with this, and you're going to have a second assignment. For now, just please don't forget your quiz and assignment one with these inputs. So the other is hypothetical at this point. Good? Okay, guys, see you next lecture. Thank you.